Hi everyone, my name is Lily and I'm a social worker with Child Welfare Services or Child Protective Services, CPS, DCSF. I make this channel to talk about just CPS related issues, a little bit of share my expertise in the matter. And I got brand new classes. And these are 595 classes from a website online that probably shouldn't just plug in just because, but I'm so excited because I was kind of blind for a few weeks. Yeah, my son broke my glasses. I had some like old backups. That's what I was using. And then these ones I can see very well. Today I wanted to talk about some of the, I don't know, ridiculous type of things that CPS can take your kids away from. I had this idea for a one of the shorts about can CPS take my kids away for because I have a dirty home and to show my craft room slash office slash storage room, like everything ends up in this room where I'm currently at. But I thought that was my husband's like, yeah, I don't want to get my kids taken away. So I was explaining, like no, that's not that's not what it means. Like, yes, this room looks like a hoarder lives here, but it's one room and it's closed. The kids don't come in here unsupervised. They're only here when I'm here. And most of the time, I'm kicking them away because they're messing with my stuff. And it's the way it is. Yeah, there's a bed covered with crap, but there is nobody trying to sleep in this bed. So it's different. So that brought me this idea. Yes, can CPS take your kids away because your house is dirty? Technically, yes, but it's not your regular forgot to wash the dishes one day or I was too tired to mop. It's gotta be hoarder status. It's gotta be bug infestation, roaches everywhere. It has to be unlivable conditions for it to get to that point. And it's not an automatic, you know, we're looking at safety. Does the situation create a safety hazard for kids? Roach infestation could be because of bacteria, and usually when you let your house get to that point, there's other things going on like rotten food in the fridge, where cross contamination is very easy. That's where we're gonna start getting worried. If you have not no working restrooms, you don't have safe water, you don't have access to electricity, broken windows, cables sticking out of the wall. Safety issues is what we're looking at now. When I said the hoarder status, if you have boxes upon boxes piled up in a toddler that's learning to climb everything, that's a very dangerous situation. That is a combination that just doesn't go together. But that same home for a 14-year-old might be okay. Not ideal, of course, but does it rise to the level where it's a safety concern that a 14-year-old or older is going to get crushed by boxes that they've probably navigated around for years? Probably not. So, of course, it's a case by case situation. It's not always the same, but yes, technically, CPS can take away your kids for dirty home. Another one that's come up, can CPS take your kids away because you have exotic pets? And the answer is probably. Yeah, depending on what it is. If you have a tiger that's not kept in a cage, that might be a big safety concern. Now, the weirdest one that I've had was a family that kept a. I don't know what the exact term is. I think they called it a pot-bellied pig. So, a big fat pig in an apartment. So, of course, there was animal feces everywhere. So, again, no, then it's a safety issue. When you have basically toxic waste, because that's what feces are. I can't even say the word right. Poop, animal poop, or even human poop within kids' reach. not in a sanitary disposal way, then that's a huge safety concern. And usually, they'll work with you, they'll try to give you a chance to clean up to show that you can keep it clean. But again, when things get to that level, it's usually for a reason. So I don't know necessarily that family um that I knew had that animal, if that was the only reason, or it could have been something else. But yes, if it causes a safety concern, we've had families with 4 or 5 more dogs inside the house, or cats, where it's just the condition, the sanitary unsanitary conditions. That's where it's gonna prompt your kids being taken away. If you guys have watched my prior videos, there is one with the shadow foster care where they had a case. The little girl, I think it was like 9, she was 9, so between 7 and 9, something like that. But her mom had an emergency, so the dad took her to the emergency room. They sent her to stay with the neighbor. The neighbor's cat got into her backpack and peed on all the clean clothes she brought. So nobody noticed. She goes to school smelling like cat pee. I guess this family didn't notice because everything in their house smells like cat pee, probably. But they that's what they were saying, that they were taking the kid away. Now, it was the whole convoluted story about like not really legal way to do foster care. They just had the dad agree to send the kid to stay with a relative. In this case, mom and dad couldn't take care of the kid because mom's in the hospital. She just had a heart attack. She's gonna have a long way to get better. But that, you can be reported to CPS for something as silly as one day you smell like cat pee. Something else, can your kids be taken away for a DUI? And it could, yes. If your children are in your car while you have a DUI, if it depends on the situation, but yes, we've had a couple of cases. Me personally, I've had two for parents. One was a hit and run. So the dad had an accident with the kid in the car and took off and stopped like 3 blocks later. Um, we opened the case for that one. We removed from the dad. The other one was a checkpoint. But again, so depending, if you have a DUI with your kids in the car, right? If you have a DUI on your own, you have no kids with you, but let's say that prompts an investigation because, let's say, when you're talking to your best friend about it, you you're like shooting the breeze, talking about how this is your fourth or fifth DUI, and they're like, you know what, I'm worried about these kids, and call it in with that information, like the kids weren't there, but there's this lifestyle when you can't stop getting DUIs. Maybe this time the kids weren't there, but what about the next time? So yes, in those situations, we could possibly remove children from a home, depending, again, the whole circumstance is different. I'm just saying, things that might seem kind of silly on the outside. Smoking marijuana, yes. If you are doing any kind of drug, even if it's recreational or medicinal or whatever, if you're getting high while taking care of your kids, that is a big possibility, because then are you focusing on their needs while you're high? Are you able to respond to an emergency, to respond to their daily needs? Especially the younger they are, the more concerning it is. If you're under the influence, when let's say you don't even smoke inside the house, but if you have to step outside to smoke, who's watching the kids? When you get back inside the house after you're done smoking but you're still under the influence, what are you going to do in the case of an emergency? Are you going to drive them to the hospital while you're under the influence? So all of that stuff, that, yes, even if it seems silly that everybody smokes weed and it's not a big deal and it's legal, do the same with alcohol. If you're drinking too much alcohol to the point where it impairs your parenting, we are looking at those things. It's not, we are not just looking at physical abuse and neglect. I mean, all of these things, if you're not 100% there for your kids, we start looking at neglect. Now, did you know that if your young child, let's say you have a little kid that doesn't know how to talk yet, baby 1 2 year olds, and they have mystery bruises, nobody knows what happened, can your child be taken away from you for injuries that there's no proof you did? Yes, as a parent, you are responsible for your kid's well-being. If when these things are investigated, your timeline that you're able to come up with, you were the only person caring for these kids, there's no other proof that you either did it yourself or you know what happened and are covering for it. There is no other explanation. If you're saying, it was the daycare, it was this person that, some neighbor, some friend that was helping you babysit, you'll never use them again. You can commit to that, like you're able to see that, this went wrong, then that's a different situation. That's not an unknown. We get really worried when it's an unknown because if you're watching your kids, you should know what happens. A lot of the times we have babies with broken bones, and babies' bones, little kids' bones, they bend very easily. It's You need to have a good amount of force to break a baby's bone. So when you have babies with fractures, 99% of the time it wasn't an accident. It was an on purpose inflicted force. And for somebody not to notice that, it's like you're either just not taking care of your kid at all, or you know you know what happened and you're not saying. So if it's to that point, like, yes, there doesn't need to be clear cut proof that you inflicted injuries on your kid for your child to be removed from your care. And again, not on every situation, because if you know that this happened at the daycare, the doctors will be able a lot of the time to figure out, could it be done, could it have happened the way the parent is saying that it's happening. Does the timeline match? Does this bruise or broken bone, is it a one-time injury or is it over time? So if you have a child with 5 different bruises, different colors, you have a brownish and a purplish and a yellowish and one that's already kind of greenish, those are different stages. Those means that they were different ages of those bruises that could not have happened while the kid was at the babysitter for 3 hours, because they've been happening over several different days. So you see, it depends on that situation. And in those kind of situations where there's no proof, you know, let's say there's no criminal charges brought up against you, but that doesn't mean that CPS is not going to be involved and to do something about it, because or level of proof is different than for criminal court. The level of proof on juvenile court, that's where we take the cases, is more likely than not. And when you go to criminal court, it has to be beyond a reasonable doubt. So more likely than not, it's like more than 50%. Beyond a reasonable doubt is, like, I don't know, 90% or whatever, whatever a reasonable person would believe. So that's how we're able to remove children even when there's no proof that the parent is the one that is causing the abuse. And it's because we are looking at it not just on the side of, is this, not everything has to relate back to that physical abuse. We can have that same situation and put it under a neglect count, that this parent has no explanation for this injury. This parent should have known that their child was receiving these injuries. They should have noticed. And I've dealt with those a lot, where the parents are just completely clueless, because we don't know for sure if you did it or if your boyfriend did it and you're covering for them. This one is one that's very hard for people to understand, because why would we take a child from a parent that could have not done anything wrong? And the main thing is, we look at the protection of the child first. If there is reasonable explanations, absolutely, right? We don't remove a child when there's a reasonable explanation. There is some cases where, let's say for example, the parent rolled over on the child when they were co-sleeping. Well, see, here's the thing. In that specific case, that's the story that the parent was going with. That's the story that you saw in the news. It was an accident. I just, I'm a heavy girl and I just accidentally rolled over on the kid. But because CPS cases are confidential, you don't see all the actual evidence that is there. Like I said, we take the injuries on the children, the parent's statement, and take it to the child abuse expert, the doctors that tell us, yes, this is likely the way it happened, or no, this injury could not be the way. And I've had it both ways. I've had it when one kid had some skin condition, or it was like, not the skin condition, it was just like when you get like lime juice on your skin and then go in the sun, it can stain your skin, or a lotion with certain ingredients in the sun. So it looked like he had a bruise, and the doctor was like, yeah, no, that's just a stain on the skin, it's not a bruise. I wouldn't be able to tell the difference, but these doctors are the experts for it. That story where the lady just said she rolled over on the baby, that was an actual case in the news years ago. I don't remember exactly, but it was something like the aunt, she was the aunt, she said that she rolled over on the baby, on the kid, and she's like 400 pounds or 600 pounds, something big, and she hadn't noticed, so the child was asphyxiated. But that child had a whole lot of other injuries, so it didn't match that circumstance. So in that situation, the child passed away. But there was the question of the younger siblings, because a parent that either causes or allows it to happen, where a child is beat enough to the level of causing death, we are absolutely concerned about the other siblings. Because even if they haven't had any abuse to this point, once that child that's being scapegoated is no longer there to be blamed, then they're just gonna move on to another child. That's very likely. That's what a very reasonable person can conclude. So that's where we take those actions to protect the children. Our main priority is not the parents' rights or not. Yes, we try to take them into account as much as possible, but our first priority is the kid's safety. So yes, the parent has a right to have a pot-bellied pig as a pet, but they don't have the right to let that pet poop all over the house and put their kid at risk of all kinds of weird illnesses because of it. So, I hope this was a good mix of funny and serious. I'll try to think of more, but again, any suggestions are completely welcome so that I can make these videos more interesting. Thank you.